trying to have a look at this plant that is down here. It looks as if, I think it's actually an elephant chewing gum ball. I'm just looking at the one in the middle of the road there by the track. I'm going to hop out for 1 second and just grab it and show you what I mean. Now, elephants, when they feed, and it goes back to the question about overpopulation, and it gets a bit more complex than that, but elephants in general are quite messy, quite wasteful. Wasteful is a bad description, but they do not necessarily chew and swallow everything that they rip up and put into their mouths. And that, I think, is, yep, it's still damp, actually. That is what's happened here. This is an elephant's gone and scooped up a plant from, must be further down the road, walked along and munched it a little bit, and we can see the bits where it's been chewed here, around this region. And then just decided that actually he really doesn't want it, and dropped it into the middle of the road. So it's all covered in sand, it's been in roots, the whole plant has been uprooted, and it is now most likely dead. And the elephant just decided, actually, I don't think I'm in the mood for whatever particular plant this is. It looks like a string of stars, just a string of stars flower, that he's chewed up the entire thing. So whenever you see something like this is tracking, by the way. These kind of signs are tracking. Not everything is the footprint that the animal leaves in the sand. Where has he ripped it up from is what I would love to know. There's a whole load of living string of stars here, these bright white flowers. I can't see exactly where he managed to grab hold of it and rip it up from. Lovely flowers, the string of stars. And just while I hop back in, we have a lovely question from Gracie, who is one of our 8-year-old viewers, and Gracie would like to know if the cinnamon bun birds have gone. And I'm going to show you exactly what Gracie means by the cinnamon bun birds. Absolutely lovely little birds. Where are they? Here we go. So, Gracie, no, the cinnamon bun birds haven't gone. They are around. This is the bird that Gracie is talking about. Beautiful little bird with a cinnamon breast. And Gracie, the cinnamon bun birds, or the cinnamon-breasted buntings, as they're also known, they've got 2 different names. They are here all year round. So you see them at all times of the year, along with all of the other different bunting species. And I'll show you my particular favorite bunting, which is, or bunbird, which is this one here. If I turn the page, the golden-breasted bunting. Not quite as pretty as the cinnamon bun bird, but very similar. There you go, Gracie. And Gracie, it's an absolute pleasure. I promise you I've never ever found your question silly at all, and I love it every time you send a question through. Right, and on that note of our somewhat younger audience, the class of Mrs. Ridge's class of First Colonial High School has joined us a little bit early this afternoon. It is wonderful to have you on board. So for the next half an hour or so, a little bit longer, we will be taking questions coming in from First Colonial High School and the students of the biology class. Welcome to the Sabi Sands, and in fact, our little section of it known as Djuma and Arathusa game reserves in the Sabi Sands, which falls into the Greater Kruger National Park area of South Africa. Now, my name is Jamie, and I have a gentleman sitting on the back of our vehicle who's known as Jean-Dre. Jean-Dre is the incredible cameraman that we are fortunate enough to have. We've also got another vehicle driving around with Brent on the back and Brian filming. And we together basically bring you a live safari. So what you're seeing is happening right here in the middle of Africa. And I've just spotted one of my favorite little creatures, so I'm going to see if I can't catch up with it first. It just dashed across the road really quickly. Oh, there goes another one. Oh, I hope they stick around. They are the cutest. You're in for a treat. Here we go. What a perfect way to start off our safari. This is called a dwarf mongoose. And they live together in these little families. They take over termite mounds. And they have an absolutely amazing social structure. Only the alpha female and the alpha male will breed, much like wolves. Wolf packs in Northern America and in Europe, only the alpha male and female will breed. The same goes for these little dwarf mongoose. And as excited as we get about the leopards and the lions and the various big animals out here, these little ones are just as fascinating. And these little guys are our smallest predators in the Sabi Sands. And with their cute little pink noses and bright beady eyes, they're also probably the cutest. Phenomenally intelligent and fearsome hunters of the various insect species of this part of South Africa. Look at how many there are. Here's 4 of them there, all keeping a close eye on us. And then there's, I would say, if I had to guess at a number of how many there are, I would guess at around 10 in this little family. And they've taken over a termite mound, which has perfect little vent systems that is mongoose size, but not big enough for big predators to go down and seek them out. So that is where they spend their days. And just look at the agility that they're showing, jumping backwards and forwards. And the noises I'm making are imitating the different vocalizations of a dwarf mongoose, and just getting a little bit of a reaction from them. They've got lots of different calls that mean different things. Now, I know it's hard while you watch through the screen to get, whoop, yeah, hello, latecomer, to get a perspective of the size of a dwarf mongoose. Now, they are all essentially the size of large domestic rats. I don't know how many of you have friends or know someone with a pet rat. The dwarf mongoose is roughly the same size with a slightly fluffier tail, much smaller than a ferret or a polecat or an ermine that you might see around the States. They are tiny little animals, but tiny as they may be, they are not to be underestimated. I've had a mongoose dangle from my nostril before. It was a friend of mine who had rescued it, and I ended up caring for this little mongoose. And because they are such social creatures, they are most definitely not an animal that should ever be kept as a pet. They're wild animals. This particular one had been rescued. It was separated from its family. But as soon as she reached sexual maturity, she started trying to scent mark. She bonded to certain people, but not to others, and was just so confused. And it was actually quite heartbreaking to see. As it was, I was one of those people who she didn't quite fully bond with, and I ended up with very sharp teeth hanging from my nostril. So a sense of scale, she's probably about, from the tip of my fingers to there, would be about the length of a dwarf mongoose, nose and tail and all, and about the same height, actually. So they are really, really tiny. Now, Ambriel, as we are closely watched, and we watch closely, you were wondering, do they eat the termites? And the answer is no. They generally don't. They might snack up the odd termite every now and again, but for the most part, they've chosen the termite burrows as a home where they can feel safe. And so what they'll usually do is they'll take a part of the termite burrow that isn't currently being occupied by any termites. Bear in mind, of course, that a termite mound is like the tip of an iceberg. There's far more going on underneath the soil. You're probably seeing about 1/10, maybe even less, of the total area that the termite colony will inhabit. So this is just one little section, and the dwarf mongoose have taken over there. I mentioned the little noises that I was making, and the different vocalizations that mean different things. And Jasmine, you were wondering what would be a predator of a dwarf mongoose if they make different vocalizations and alarm calls. Eagles, snakes, some of the smaller species, smaller, rarer species of cat, and by that I mean a serval or a caracal, the mysterious and nocturnal small cats or medium-sized cats, a jackal, which is basically Africa's equivalent of a fox. And those are sort of the main enemies. Now, I had the most amazing sighting with a giant cobra that had moved through an area that the dwarf mongoose were foraging in. And the interaction from that moment on, the cobra shot away as soon as I entered the scene. It was afraid of me. But the dwarf mongoose immediately moved all of their babies from one den site that the snake had obviously discovered to another. And it was amazing to watch these tiny little creatures hoisting up the babies, carrying them by the scruff of their necks, and transferring 5 of them safely across to a termite mound just like this. And the more you look at dwarf mongoose, the more you see them all around you. But Jasmine, something like a lion or a leopard, these things are a little bit too small for them to be bothered with. But I did have one particular sighting with a young male leopard that was learning to hunt and learning to kill, and that goes for lion cubs and leopard cubs and cheetah cubs. That hunting instinct within them is very strong, and they practice on small animals such as the dwarf mongoose. In this particular case, the young male picked it up, fiddled with it a little bit, but wasn't really showing any sign of wanting to eat it. And Crystal and Alana, just quickly with your question about our lovely dwarf mongoose, you were saying, are they related to rodents? What kind of animal are they related to? So your closest relative would be something like a skunk or a polecat or a ferret, if any of you are familiar with those. Those are probably your closest relatives that you will get. And they are part of the Herpestidae family. So not rodents at all, but their own completely separate family. Let's head back over so that Brent can say hello to you all and have a look at the giant bird that he's found.
So we've got some white-backed vultures perched in a dead knobthorn tree. Now, I think this late in the day, it's possibly not a kill. I think they're just up for the rest. But I would normally go have a walk in here to have a look, but someone else has already done it for me, so we're not going to. But incredible animals. They're very, very important part of the ecosystem. Now, they are one of the main things that stop disease spreading. So if there's a carcass left, all those little bits of rotting meat and whatnot, they come there to clean them up, and they stop a lot of disease and stuff by that. And they're incredibly immune to most nasty diseases. So really, really important function of the ecosystem. Now, they are under quite a lot of threat through lots of different parts of Africa and for lots of different reasons. The main reason being that they have been poisoned. So farmers trying to stop normally bigger predators, lions, hyenas, leopards, from killing their livestock, will often poison the carcass. And that is a very ineffective way, because of course they feed on everything. So everything that feeds on it, all the different predators and vultures, the jackals, everything will be affected by those poisons. There's another reason that it happens, and that's because in certain African cultures, vultures are quite a mystic being, and they have possess the skill to see very, very big distances. So if you eat a soup of vulture's eyes, you can see into the future. So there is also some illegal trade in vulture body parts and in bones and eyes and skulls and stuff. So they've made a good comeback in this area, but in other parts of Africa, they're still under threat. So for those of you who didn't know, it was National Draw a Bird Day. So I've been drawing from life, so there's my drawing, and I think we're going to leave this now because there's lots of stuff to see, and I've finished with my art class for the day. So Heather from Mrs. Richards, Ridges class, sorry about that, was asking a question, but I was waffling. And it's a very, very good question. It's how long do vultures live for? And they can live very long for a bird. I'm trying to remember exactly, but I think about up to about 30 years, and they can travel vast distances as well. I will double check that for you, Heather. I'm not 100% sure on how long they live for, but I will double check it. So we're going to pop through onto this big open grass patch here. That's called Impala Plains. Now, Brooke's wondering, what time do the vultures usually hunt? Well, Brooke, they don't normally hunt, they're scavengers. So they fly incredibly high in the sky, and they can see for more than 5 miles, and they'll be able to spot a dead animal, and then they'll descend and start feeding off that carcass. Now, certain vultures will hunt if they're desperate, but normally they'd prefer to find something that's already dead to eat. And certain vulture species have certain niches in the ecosystem, depending what they are. So here we go, we've got the lappet-faced vulture, and he's the biggest, he's the boss of all the vultures. Now, Ambriel was wondering, are they aggressive towards each other? Yes, they are. They will fight each other and other vulture species. So then the next biggest guy is the Cape vulture. So this is vulture hierarchy. Lappet-faced vulture, Cape vulture, white-backed vulture, white-headed vulture. We don't get the Ruppel's griffin here, but then at the bottom, where's he gone, is the hooded vulture. And now he's there, right at the bottom of the vulture food chain, and he's got this tiny little bill. So he's able to feed off the scraps that the bigger vultures can't. So they're generally on the peripheries, and once all the bigger vultures are moved off, he'll go eat all those little bits of sinew. And maybe that's another hooded vulture picture for you. So they are the smallest of the vulture species. The white-backed vulture, the most common one we get here. And you can see very distinct white-backed. And the ones we were looking at just now were white-backed vultures. So on a big carcass, say something like a, see I'm pushing the wrong button, that's why, let's say an elephant carcass or a buffalo carcass, sometimes the other vultures will have to wait for these guys. Now they're the biggest and most impressive of the vultures, and they've got incredibly strong beaks, and they're able to open up carcasses that the others aren't, that the others can't rather than aren't. So it doesn't look like there's too much out here on the open plains. So, going further on Ambriel's question, who asked, are they aggressive and do they compete? They do. They compete around carcasses, and they are very aggressive towards each other. Oh, there's an animal on the edge of Impala Plains. Some impala. Off in the distance, you can see them there. The most numerous antelope in Africa. So Trudy would like to know how many animals we see in a day. Oh, Trudy, lots is the answer. We see quite a few different species. In numbers, I wouldn't have any idea. Over 100 easily, probably 200. But in different species, the most common one we see are those beautiful little impala. And we see elephants most days. We see buffalo, kudu, waterbuck, steenbok, duiker, mongoose, leopard, lion. We probably see about 15 to 20 species on average a day, and probably over 200 individual different animals. Dane is wondering what type of car we're driving. We're driving a modified 4x4, Dan. And it is a short wheelbase, so it is very, very short, which enables us to get into the thickets and bush when we're following things like lions and leopards and wild dogs. So you used to, when it was new in the shop, it had a roof and normal seats and everything. And we took a grinder and we cut it all off and changed everything to be able to film from it. And there's a special antenna that sits on the back that sends the signals back to your classroom. Trudy would like to know how I got this job. Did I learn more about animals in school or seeing them in the wild? Well, Trudy, for me, definitely seeing them in the wild, but then again, the wild was my school. So I've been very lucky. I've grown up in the bush, and I actually, when I was quite young, my little brother and myself, we had a teacher who lived with us in the middle of a game reserve. So mostly I'd say I've learned the most from other people who've been in the bush a long time. Some of the local trackers, the other rangers, and even now we learn from each other every day. So you never stop learning in the bush. You can learn something new every single day. It's like a big fun school that never ends. So let's go see what Jamie's up to, and we're going to go see if we can find a leopard.
Sometimes important out here to stop every now and again and just take in the scenery that is around us. Life for us works at a very different pace, and we're very fortunate in that we've got moments to be able to stop and to look out over views like this. Are you looking straight west, as you can tell, as the sun slowly sets, towards the great Drakensberg Mountains. Drakensberg Mountains. I'm sorry, I'm distracted. Chandra, I don't know if you're going to be able to capture this, but that drongo is chasing the lilac-breasted roller. One of our birds it's a fork-tailed drongo, a tiny, tiny little bird that was going after a lilac-breasted roller, which is a much larger bird, and just chasing it away. I wondered why it was screeching like that. There we go, off it flaps into the distance. Luckily, we have the most incredible cameraman. Right, distraction, and there are all kinds of things to distract us out here. Let's go back to the Drakensberg Mountain. Oh, got a hornbill now. Oh, yeah, the drongo's going for it again. That is a very bad-tempered drongo. Neither of those birds are birds of prey. There's no reason for it to be doing that. But drongo in particular are very, very aggressive birds. They are not afraid of a fight one little bit. I've seen them chase birds that are 10, 20 times bigger than they are. Now, Heather, you were wondering, let's go and look at our view while I answer this, rather than looking at me. Heather was wondering about what the most aggressive animal is that we get out here. And it depends. It depends what you mean by aggressive, in terms of towards people or in terms of towards other animals. Towards people, two of our largest mammals capable of inducing injury, in that I hesitate to use the word aggressive. I don't like it when describing wild animals. It's more of a human term. Wild animals respond aggressively because they're afraid or because they are angry and feel trapped. But in terms of most aggressive, the buffalo bull in particular, and the hippopotamus are probably responsible for most of the aggressive responses towards people. But all of our big animals deserve respect and deserve to be treated as capable of being aggressive. The honey badger, the tiny little honey badger that probably isn't ever going to be a threat to people, but many of you will have heard of a honey badger. It's very similar to a badger that you might be familiar with, but more like a mixture between a mongoose and a badger, quite probably about this big, about the size of my arms, and very much known for its aggressive nature. But then again, aggressive suggests that the animal goes out looking for a fight. That hardly ever happens. Animals out here just want to get on with their day-to-day existence, and any aggressiveness towards people is usually provoked by people's actions. For example, we had an encounter with elephants this morning, where they were just a little bit too unhappy with us and taken by surprise. So those would probably be the most aggressive animals. James, you were wondering about the rarest animal that we could see. The rarest animal, by far, in terms of mammals, I'm now not talking insects or birds, which I'm not discounting them, just don't fall on the list. This is by far, if I could remember how to count, sorry, hold on 1 second. This is by far the rarest animal that you could see out here. A ground pangolin. It is very similar to sort of a walking artichoke or pine cone. A little nocturnal animal, tiny little thing, only a couple of kilograms or a couple of pounds in weight, that wanders about looking for termites and ant species and scratching them open with those very large claws. Now, in terms of, we know a lot about the larger animals and the poaching problems. In terms of the most poached species out here, that is probably one of the highest on the list. Pangolin scales valued for their completely imagined medicinal uses. They're keratin. They're keratin like fingernails and hair, but they are poached for that particular purpose and shipped across overseas. And you hear stories about a ton's worth of pangolin being found. And when you think about how many pangolins that must be involved whenever there's a trafficking bust, it is something that's very, very distressing. But out here, we are so fortunate in that we're in the perfectly protected area. I've seen 2 pangolins in my life. Jandre, I don't know how many you've seen. 1. Jandre has seen 1. And that was purely by chance. But the wonderful thing about it is that when you do see something like that, it is unbelievably exciting. Something that we all we lose our minds over. So pangolin, it's also very, very shy and mysterious. We hardly know, much like the fact that there was a little antelope species there. Well done, Jandre. Talking about shy and secretive, that little steenbok was sitting watching me the entire time from behind the bush, listening to me talk and hoping I hadn't seen him. It was only when I came around the corner that he realized I was going to find him. Now, Ilani, you were wondering, in terms of our day-to-day lives, and we do lead quite very different lives. You were wondering how long we spend on the reserve. Most of us live out here. Now, generally what happens when you work in the bush, because you work 7 days a week, you work very long days because it requires early mornings and it requires late evenings. In general, we work a 6-week on, 2 weeks off cycle. Or in some places it's a 3-week working and 1 week off cycle. And that's to just prevent burnout, and that's to allow people who are living out here not to get any kind of cabin fever. It's quite an isolated existence. It's one that I love. It's not for everyone, but one that I absolutely enjoy every moment of. And what you'll find for most of us is we go on holiday to the bush anyway. And Amanda was wondering what my favorite animal to find is. That is such a difficult question. I really wish I could tell you. It depends on my mood of the day. It depends on what I'm looking for. It's so tricky. Elephants to me are always going to be incredibly special. Spending time with a herd of elephants and sort of taking in their wisdom and their serenity is something that I never ever take for granted, and I always feel privileged to enjoy. Wild dogs are always incredibly exciting. If you're in that kind of mood and you want to follow wild dogs, they're the most incredible hunters. But for me, I think my favorite is unfortunately one that we do not show on our live safaris due to the poaching problems. But I will always have a very special spot.
Sorry about that. Sometimes when we're live in the African bush, we have a little bit of technical difficulties, but I'm sure they'll be sorted out quite quickly. Oh, hang on. This is a very bumpy road. And zebra and giraffe and impala, and a lot of your predators are nocturnal, lion, leopard. But my favorite two of my favorite animals are crepuscular, and that is the cheetah and the African wild dog. Now, when we look at this absolutely gorgeous view I'm about to show you, Well, Brian's about to show you to be absolutely correct. Now look at that. There's the sun setting behind the Drakensberg. And we're going to have a quick chat about the Drakensberg in a few minutes. But first, let's go and see what Jamie's got.
Back to the conversation we were having about one of the most aggressive animals out here. Now, as I said, I don't define them as aggressive, but buffalo bulls in particular have been known to, let's just say they've chased me up a tree once or twice in my time in the bush on foot. Of absolutely no threat to us in the car, however, which means that we can sneak up a little bit closer and go get a lovely view of one of Africa's big 5 members. And while I head across in this direction, I've spoken about our untapped wilderness. You were looking out across the view of our lovely area. Alex, you were wondering about how big the reserve is. Now, we drive on a little portion. Oh, shame, it's the buffalo with the wounded shoulder. Alex, the quick answer is our little section is around 2,000 hectares, so 2,000 football fields. But we are in a wilderness area that ranks about reaches up to about 4 million hectares, crossing into Zimbabwe, Mozambique, with no fences in between. 4 million football fields. Now just have a look at what this oxpecker is doing, because it's such an interesting example of the relationship between the two. No boy. So he is covered in ticks, and for the most part, a bird like that will help rid him of ticks and parasites. But when a buffalo has an injury like this one does on his shoulder, the birds will peck and tear at it and keep it from healing completely. That is a red-billed oxpecker. And usually they have a perfect mutually beneficial relationship with the buffalo. But when the buffalo has an injury like that, it completely turns into a relationship that could only be described really as parasitic in nature rather than mutually beneficial. There's not that many examples of natural symbiotic relationships that could go such different directions. Because one oxpecker like that could eat 1,000 ticks on a buffalo in a day. We're lucky we've got a whole group of what we nickname Dugger boys or mud boys wandering along the road. There's a couple more. They look like they were having a bit of a push and a shove. There they go. Whoop. Brent has found another wonderful view of the sunset, so go and have a look while I get a bit closer.
So Brian and I are still here looking at this magnificent sunset. Now, the very interesting thing is, well, I'm about to talk to you about a mountain, but you think, well, mountains should be geology, not biology. But it is a very important thing. So this mountain range and many mountain ranges throughout the world create natural barriers that cause speciation in some places. So you have an example of blue wildebeest, which lives down here in the low veld. You have a black wildebeest who lives up on the high veld above there. Now they've come from the same ancestor. They split about 1 million years ago, but these mountains have provided a very significant barrier for them to join again, and so they've completely become separate species and have very different feeding patterns and that. So mountains, rivers, and other big natural barriers are really, really important in the evolvement of species. Now, you'll have certain species that will be able to cross that, like lions and leopards, and it all depends. Another fascinating thing, down here, we've got lots of trees. On top there, it's almost all grass. So up there, you have almost no animals that eat leaves. You only really have animals that eat grass. So, and down here, we've got a mixture of both. So it's very, very interesting when you look at this type of stuff. But hopefully, I've got a little surprise in store for you in not too long. But while we make our way towards the surprise, let's go look at those buffalo with Jamie.
The last 2 buffalo bulls making their way past us. Now, one buffalo bull of this size probably weighs close to 900 kilograms in weight, which puts it nearly at 2,000 pounds. They are absolutely enormous bovids, and whilst they might look a little bit like cows, they are definitely not to be confused with them. That thick boss in the base of the horns is pure bone, all the way from the brain case right up until the top part of the horns. They're absolutely enormously hard substance, and that, of course, for them is for competing with each other for access to mates, so they fight, clashing heads. Unlike antelope species, unlike deer in the Americas and within Europe, our antelope and our bovids, like the buffalo, do not ever shed their horns. That is pure bone that will be with them for the rest of their life. Doesn't seem as though we're going to get another nice view of those buffalo, despite best efforts. Alex, you were wondering about how big a buffalo could get. As I said, a big buffalo bull, around 900 kilograms, so that's close on to 2,000 odd pounds of pure muscle and weight. Definitely, and of course, bearing in mind that a buffalo bull like this might look slow and laborious as it moves through the bushes, but when they want to, they can cover ground at around 15 meters per second. And I'm talking uphill, downhill, places you never would have expected a buffalo to be able to go. 15 meters per second, that's 15 feet in 1 second. You close your eyes and imagine sort of something running across from one side of your classroom to the other. Close your eyes and open them again. I'm not sure where exactly you are watching our show, but that buffalo could essentially cover that distance in the space of a blink of an eyelid. And not something you want to see. Oh, look who's here. Hello. I was about to say, that doesn't look like a buffalo view we've just had. Hello, little spotted hyenas. Now this is one of my favorite animals to see. This is my favorite predator on the reserve. Spotted hyena. And I'm so chuffed because it's been a while since I've seen them. What are you mischiefs up to? Are you up to no good? Oh, that's a little sub-adult. The reason I say spotted hyena are my favorites, they've got such an unfair reputation. What's going on, little hyena? Look at its body language. Constantly glancing backwards and forwards. Something's interested in it there. So that animal that you just looked at, despite its unfair, bless you, Jean-Andre, despite its unfair reputation as a dirty scavenger and a thief of other animals' kills, it is a hunter in its own right. And not just that, it's the most intelligent, hands down, the most intelligent predator here. And that's actually been relatively proved through both my personal observation to me, they're gone already. They've already managed to disappear into this block. My personal observation, but also studies that have been done into their interactions with each other and other animals. Amazing. Completely vanished in that split second it took me to get here. I just want to sit here and listen to whatever it was that had that one so unsettled staring down the road. It could well be a leopard. We had tracks of a male leopard coming into this area, so you never know. I just want to keep an eye out. While I do, I'll just tell you about the study that they conducted on spotted hyenas and the fact that they actually proved to have better cognitive and social communication skills than, in certain cases, chimpanzees, and most definitely more so than lions when given puzzles to work out, human-made puzzles that involved meat as a reward. Complex social structure. The females are bigger than the males in all circumstances. They have higher levels of testosterone, and in fact that has given them a pseudo-penis through years and years of evolution. Most fascinating matriarchy in the way that they sort of... What is that? It's a buffalo. It's another buffalo. I think the hyena must have spooked it and it's gone looking for the rest of its clan. You can just see it. Jandre's managed to get a lovely view of it. And Alana, you were wondering why the hyenas move their tails so much. Hello, Buffalo. He's clearly got a fright from the spotted hyenas. He probably couldn't quite see them. Buffalo eyesight isn't great. Alana, the hyenas move their tails like that because it is an important part of their visual communication. So they tell you their mood based on blinded by the bright presenter light. Sorry, Chandre. They base their mood, or they express their mood purely in the movements of their tails. So the upward-facing tail is an excited hyena. Swishing from side to side might be a little bit of a stressed-out hyena. Tucked underneath their bodies, just like your domestic cats and dogs at home, immediately tells you that that is an unhappy animal. So you can read their language out here just like you've learnt about the different body language of your domestic pets. And Kayla, I mentioned that they were the most successful hunters out here, and I'm just going to keep checking. You were wondering about how hyenas hunt, and the answer is, unlike lions and leopards that are ambush predators that wait until they've snuck close enough to surprise that animal, a spotted hyena has tremendous amounts of stamina. They're smaller than lions, so they don't overheat, and they've got those sloping backs, which of course gave them that horrible reputation of being sneaky creatures of darkness, but in fact means that they can cover enormous ground. So what they do is they run down their prey until the prey is just too exhausted to continue on, and then they grab it and essentially, not to be too graphic, but they essentially disembowel it. So they rip open the stomach cavity. Now that actually in the end is very often a faster death for any animal out here. The sunset is absolutely spectacular. But yes, the death that a hyena imparts is usually quicker and less stressful for the animal than that of a leopard or a lion slowly strangling it. Look at the sunset. Isn't it absolutely stunning? I've been desperately trying to find our hyena den. We have a clan of spotted hyenas with 5 cubs under the age of 5 months old. You guys will just have to keep watching. Don't forget that we do this twice a day, every day. And so if you find yourself wanting to find out more about our wonderful animals and the wonderful area that we live in, you can tune in anytime you like. Right, class of Mrs. Ridge, I hope you've had a fantastic time. Apparently you are all on your way. So I will say farewell for now and say enjoy the rest of your school day. I hope to see you again on the back of our safari vehicle someday. Cheers, guys. Okie dokie. Back to our regular audience. I've been getting some amazing visuals of the different big pictures of the birds that you have been drawing for us. And I really enjoyed Doodle's picture of a tree that she described as Chandre intrigued and fascinated by this incredible sunset. All right, shall we stop one more time for that, Chandre? Okay. Let's find a spot. Oh, I think I might have ruined the best spots, but let's find a spot. No, there's a tree in the way there. Yeah, shall we stop and enjoy the sunset for a few moments in silence and just listen to the sounds of the bush? Lots and lots of crested francolin being the predominant sound that I can hear. definitely totally worth spending a little bit of time to watch that in silence. But back to the drawing a picture of a bird day. Doodles sent through a picture of a tree with a caption that said, and a bird flying away in the distance, and a caption that said, "This is a highly detailed picture of a roller, I promise, just very far away." I did really enjoy that. I can't remember the other ones that have come through, and I seem to have mislaid my phone that I was looking at them on. But I did really, oh, there we go. I did really appreciate all of the offers that you guys have drawn for National Draw a Bird Day. And Tony apparently tried to draw a hornbill and came up with Kermit the Frog wearing a hornbill hat, which I also thought was absolutely hilarious. So very well done to you guys. I really appreciate you all being such good sports. We stopped there for a moment just to listen to the various night sounds of the bush. Andrew, you were wondering what the most common bird call is out in the low veld, which is where we are. This is the veld being a very typical South African word for bush, and low meaning we're quite low in altitude. Andrew? The most common, if I had to pick one, I would say would probably be the sounds, or at least the most obvious would be the sounds of either the crested francolin, who seem to have quite a thing for interrupting me in mid-conversation, and possibly even the Cape turtle dove, that you're almost guaranteed to hear if you stop anywhere in the bush. What else is common? The wee sound of the grey go-away bird, as well as the various cheeps and twitters of the little, more subtly coloured birds, but nevertheless equally noisy birds, like the scrub robins and the larks and pipits and cisticolas that inhabit the trees. We hardly ever see them, but we certainly do hear them. And some of them have the most beautiful lyrical songs. And we've had long conversations about what's running. There's a hyena. Oh, it's a daker. I thought it was another hyena. I was going to say, this is getting ridiculous. It might lead me to wonder about hyena dens. And just by the way, for those of you who were watching, I don't suppose any of you have any idea which two hyenas those were. They were so far away and fleeting for me that I absolutely wasn't sure which individuals we were looking at. My guess was some of the older sub-adults, maybe Bella or one of the February twins from last year, but I genuinely am not entirely sure. They could, of course, be hyenas that we haven't yet really properly identified.
What?
3, 2.
Welcome. Sorry about that. Just getting a bit chilly. Just popping my jersey on, and we're on our way to a great surprise. And before we get there, I want to fortify myself against the cold. And all of us are going to start looking like Michelin men shortly. Brian has 4 layers on, and of course he's far worse off than I am. He's out, up in the air, no protection for most of his body from chilly wind. Sorry, just listening to the game drive. So we're looking for one of these bush signposts at the moment. A branch in the road to lead us in the direction. Aha! I see it. What could it be? What could it be? Standing by. Copy, thanks, Pete, no problem. So we're not quite ready to go in yet, and that is perfect because Virginia, hi Virginia, is wondering if we've seen that shy male leopard Djuma again, the one we were habituating to the vehicles not so long ago. I'm just going to give some space for the other car to come out. And Virginia, he hasn't, but most of where he seems to roam is outside of our Travis area. So he only comes into that far sort of northeastern corner of Djuma from around Buffalo's Hook Waterhole through to Cheetah Cutline. Hopefully he comes back again. I'd love to spend some more time with him. I just listened to the radio. So, Nkomo.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Cheers, cheers.
Just have a spin around. I'm sure the bamba is still here.
You can smell it. All right, awesome. Thanks a lot. Cheers, Pete.
Enjoy.
Yeah, all right. So there we go. And there we go. So apparently he thinks there's still some meat around. He can smell it. I haven't seen it yet. But what could eat meat? I don't know. Brian, do you know what eats meat?
Not sure.
Connor the carnivore? Has Connor escaped DRC? For those of you who are not sure who Connor is a member of our tech team who has a very healthy appetite. So before we get to the surprise, a quick update on the Birmingham boy. I bumped into the Sabi Sands management who went to go check on him, and as I sort of suspected, and that's why I didn't say you've got to be quite careful, is that he's apparently fine. He's just a bit skinny. Standing by. Copy, thanks. Okay. Can definitely smell some meat around here somewhere. Oh, what's that? It's something that eats meat and climbs trees. It must be a shrike. It's not a shrike. It's a leopard, but now, which leopard is it? I know which leopard it is. Brian knows which leopard it is, but we will see which one it is shortly. So I'm going to give you guys the joy of identifying it for yourself. Okay. Hello, hello. There we go. Now for our leopard experts out there, let's see who's going to be the quickest to ID which leopard this is. If you know which leopard this is, pop us an email on questions@WildEarthTV or use the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. Now I can definitely smell meat around here somewhere. Can you smell that, Brian? Oh, stunning. So I hope you guys are grabbing some screenshots. I'm going to take a few photos quickly. And if you have some screenshots, please share them. Pop them on Facebook or on Twitter with the hashtag Safari Live. So I'll give you a clue. This is one of the leopards who's a mommy at the moment. You can see that wonderful white tip to the tail that the cubs are so adept at following. Miss. Oh dear. Yeah. I just saw his head now. So guys, there's a hyena behind us and it looks like it's going to come a bit closer now. And well done to Shannon and Raisa and many others who got this leopard correct. It is Shadow. So she's not with the cubs at the moment. The den is probably about 900 meters from here. And she does have a kill somewhere. Oh, tired kitty. Now there's a hyena lurking about behind us. Can't really see it. It's in those round leaf thickets. Brian's trying to see if we can spot the hyena. You see him, Brian? He was there, but he was cruising around. There he is. Oh, he's going to disappear behind the other vehicle, unfortunately. He might pop around shortly. And she's watching that hyena at the moment. She doesn't look too perturbed. It's very unlikely that that hyena's going to jump up there to get her. Oh. I'm not sure. Now, I think that hyena's off mark. I can hear flies now. So I actually think the kill's somewhere on this side. I think there's a second hyena that's arrived. Well, hello to Monique, who's in London, and she's wondering about Tingana. She apologizes if it's already been answered, but she's just got home from work and jumped onto Safari Live. Monique, well, we were tracking him a bit earlier today. We weren't able to find exactly where he went, but hopefully we'll get some fresh tracks in the morning. The tracks have been walked over by a lot of elephants, and I know he did have that slight injury in his leg, but it's a male leopard. They have an incredible way of bouncing back from these injuries. So it'll be really good to see if we can catch up with them in the morning and have a better look at that injury. You can see she's got a very full belly, and you can see that suckle marks, that darker patch around her teat. Mia's wondering, would that hyena be looking for the cubs? I don't think so, Mia. The hyena's going to be looking for the meat that I think she's actually finished, just judging by that grotesquely large belly she's sporting at the moment. If anything, the hyena's picking up the scraps, whatever little bones she was too big for her to eat. So don't worry, Mia, the cubs are safe and quite far from here. Gary says he loves the paws hanging down. There we go, look at that. Oh, isn't that beautiful? You can see that very distinct back 3 lobes. Oh, Nat, she wants to hide her paws from us. Oh, looks like she might get up. Doing a bit of stretching. It's incredible how adept these animals are at moving in the trees. Look at that. So she might be coming down to head towards the cubs, so I'm not going to follow her after dark. So she is heading in the direction of the den. Oh, a little scent mark first. So we will try to get another last view of her, and then we're going to leave her be. Well, she's looking very fat, very happy, and very healthy. So I'm just going to turn the light off for a second, guys, as I move forward. Oh, scratchy scratch. I wonder if she maybe hasn't got a little piece of a kill stashed somewhere close by that she wants to take up the tree, maybe. Or she might head off for a drink, or head off back to feed her babies. But I think if she moves too far from here and moves in any direction towards the cubs, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave her. We need to turn around. That hyena wandered off that way. Obviously not. Oh no, there's the hyena. Oh, that hyena has stolen her kill. Well, it looks like a very big kill. That's probably why she didn't take it up the tree. Oh, almost saw what it was there. Oh, looks like she's actually coming to challenge the hyena. They do that sometimes, but it's quite unusual for a female leopard to do it in this area. They are quite small. How are we behind us there, Brian? but I have seen female leopards attack hyenas before. Oh no. Oh, she's got a piece of meat. So then she did stash some of her kill where that hyena couldn't get to it. And she's carrying it away now. Not very much. How are we, bud? Can I go? Let's have one quick look. But I think I'd rather leave her be if we don't see her now. We'll go have a look at that hyena. So, what Seep said is he could hear that hyena behind when he first arrived, but they couldn't see it. So it looks like she might have lost that kill a while ago. But she went off in this direction. But I'm quite happy we've had such a spectacular sighting of her. I'm not going to push it any further. Let's leave her be and let's go have a look and see what her kill was and what the hyenas got. So while we get into the spot to see what that hyena's eating, let's go have a look at the beautiful African sky with Jamie.
So awesome that we've managed to spend a little bit of time with Shadow. I had to stop for this. I know we have stopped for the view a couple of times this afternoon on drive, but this is very unusual in terms of the view. The flatness of the cloud, and I think what we're seeing there is the end of the cold front and the sun, last rays of the sun just poking through. It is truly beautiful. There's nothing really more iconic than the silhouette of an African tree in the sunset. It was like our trees were designed for picturesque shots. Now, while Brent has been with Shadow, I've just been perusing Djuma, using my spotlight to see if I can find any weird and wonderful nighttime creatures. Shadow and the hyenas, of course, count, but in this case, I'm talking more about things like the pangolin that we mentioned earlier. That would be incredibly exciting, or an aardvark, or a porcupine. Not these impala, that's not what I wanted to find at all. Hello, impalas. Now, the reason why we are driving past in the dark I think I'm going to send you back across to Brent.
So we go, guys, there's the hyena. It's an adult male impala. If we come down a bit, actually, you can see the horns there. So an adult male impala, and that's why she's so full, and that's also why she wasn't able to put it into the tree. It would be far too heavy for a leopard of Shadow size. So, but it looks like she got most of it before the hyena got here. Now that is a really impressive feat for a leopard of Shadow size. A big male impala. Now she's probably been took advantage of the rut that's happening at the moment, so the impala are quite distracted. Try and move forward a skosh. Now, I know this might be a little bit gruesome for some people, but this is nature at its most raw, and in my opinion, it's most beautiful. Now, a hyena will be able to make use of a lot more of that impala carcass than a leopard would, for example. And looking from what's left, she may be a bit more meat around the neck and that, but the skull and those ribs will be too strong for her. I mean, too thick, too heavy for her to break into. But this hyena will be able to crunch through that. Listen to those crunching. So I'm just going to keep quiet. I'm going to turn our sound up a little bit so you can listen to the bone crunching jaws of the spotted hyena. Crocata, crocata. Just eaten through the nose. Even he's a bit nervous, and he's nervous that a lion might come. He's probably a bit nervous that a lion might come, or other hyena, or sheep, another hyena that's more highly ranking, and steal that impala away. So you can see constantly lifting their eyes, checking around. So, someone else coming in? No, thought I might have heard another set of footsteps. So Sandra is wondering, will the hyena eat the horns as well? No, Sandra, he won't. He's unable to digest keratin. So keratin is what the horns are made out of, and that is the same as hair or fingernails. So he won't eat the horns, but he'll eat pretty much everything else, except the horns and the hooves. Sometimes, inadvertently, they might swallow the hooves, but never really a horn, especially not with a male impala this size. Ivy has asked a very interesting question. Ivy would like to know, will this hyena call its clan so they can come eat? The answer to that, Ivy, is the complete opposite. This hyena doesn't want its clan anywhere near here. So hyenas, when they're out scavenging singly, like this one is at the moment, especially with a small carcass like this, will not want another hyena near it. So it'll not call anyone, and it'll really hope no other hyena hears it. There we go. That's exactly why, Ivy. Your timing was perfect. A higher ranking hyena has arrived and claimed the carcass for itself. So there we go. The one who was eating has been pushed off. And now the other one's running off, and a new hyena has claimed it. So a higher ranking hyena in the clan has claimed the carcass. So the only time they'll really call for other clan members is when there's a big lion kill, or during a territorial dispute with other hyenas. So if there's a bunch of lionesses on a buffalo, they might call in for moral support, or a hippo or an elephant or something big. But for something like this, they'll try to keep it as quiet as possible so they don't lose it to another member, as you just saw what happened here. So as I mentioned earlier, those massive teeth of a hyena that are designed for breaking up bones. And Cat and Tampa also noted, you can really see its jaws working on this meal. So this other hyena would have been attracted by the crunching of the bones from the first hyena and come to investigate. And probably as it got closer, it picked up the scent, charged in, and you can see very little sort of fight back was offered. So obviously quite a big void in the hierarchy between these two hyenas. Oh, you hear that, Brian? The other hyena seems to have found itself a snack somewhere behind us. Maybe a leg bone or something. I can just hear it crunching. Sounds quite close. Oh, but see, when you make too much noise, it might sound... Chasing. And even though it probably has the worst scraps, this one just had to make sure it didn't have a better piece of meat than she'd just stolen from. So Patricia is wondering, is the high-ranking hyena always a female? Well, if you're a male, yes. Every single female, even the most lowly ranked female, is more highly ranked than the highest ranked male. So if you are a male and a female arrives, even the lowest ranked female, sorry for you, there goes your din-dins. But there will be, of course, different hierarchy between the females. So it is the only truly matriarchal society out here in the bush. Really still night. With those massive ears, she could have heard this bone crunching from quite a way away. Now that doesn't mean this one's the highest ranking, so this crunching could lead to another hyena coming in and stealing that from her. So quite interesting. It is amazing the complexity of the hyena social structure. But the one thing that makes me think this animal is one of the higher ranking individuals in her clan is because she has looked up now, but not nearly as nervous while feeding, doesn't look up as much, and is more interested in the feeding, whereas that first one was constantly looking up, constantly worried about another hyena arriving. Whereas this one's taking the feeding far more slowly, far more sedately, which leads me to believe it's probably quite a high ranking individual. Do you hear that, bro? Sounds like there's another hyena feeding off something over there in the distance. Anyway, so Sandra would like to know, and Sandra's from South California, why hyenas always stand when eating. They will sometimes lie down and eat, but generally they want to be in a position that they are able to quickly pick up and run away with that carcass if the need comes. So that's generally why they stand, and also it enables them to use those massive muscles that attach to the neck and the legs there to really use them to best effect in ripping up a carcass and breaking through bone. Oh, charge him. And now look at that. That is a young hyena, so a sub-adult who has taken the carcass, so physically much smaller than the adult that was just feeding, but of course obviously born to a higher ranking individual. So the rank in hyenas is inherited from your mom. So now the little one, sorry Brian, the guy there, disappearing with the majority of the carcass. Look at that, probably about a year old, and this is much bigger and is now left with a hoof by the looks of things. And some skin. so not much. Now Raisa would like to know, these are Djuma hyenas. Raisa, to be completely honest, I don't know. I'm trying to think. I think from where I've seen latrines around here. I don't think so though, Raisa. I think these could be from further west. Yes, there's not much there. That's just a punch of skin. I'm going to go see if hyenas left possibly any other little bits. Oh, there was a little bit. Well done. So Kevin's wondering, did Shadow just skate away into the night? And that's exactly what she did. She had a piece of meat that she had hidden from them, and she took that opportunity to sort of get out of Dodge with a little bit of meat, even though she was really full, probably not to eat right now, but probably to store and eat at a later date. Now, it's after finding what the hyenas were eating, it's quite obvious why she didn't take it up the tree. It was too heavy for her, but she did seem to have the definitely the wrong word, but nevertheless the lion's share of that carcass before the hyenas stole it. She was very, very full and looking in very, very good condition. And what makes hyenas one of the more successful species is their ability to scavenge the tiniest bit of bone and their patience. Now, if a leopard has a kill in the tree, they can wait for 3 days for the tiniest little bit of skin or leg bone to fall down, and they'll take advantage of that. They often come and go, but they are incredible animals. And they do quite a bit of their own hunting too. They don't only scavenge. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Wow, that power is incredible. Listen to that. And that is look like a pelvic bone that's being absolutely destroyed at the moment. Really getting the most out of every little bit. Does that hyena look like it's blind in its one eye, Brian? It does. The hyena's blind in its right eye. So definitely, I haven't seen any blind hyenas at the Djuma clan, so probably not from the Djuma clan, this lot. So guys, it's been a fantastic having you on the Sunset Safari, and really great to catch up with Shadow again. I felt I haven't seen her in an absolute age, and so wonderful to see her looking fat, happy and healthy, and nice suckle marks on those teats. So don't forget, tomorrow, Sunset Safari, first drive on Cheetah Plains. And also don't forget to join us for the Sunrise Safari tomorrow for all the wonderful creatures of the African bush. Now for the last few seconds, let's listen to a hyena crunch some bones.